You were never the quiet type, but you weren't the star either. Just another voice in the room, trying to get noticed. At school, you weren't the funniest. At home, you weren't the favorite. Online, that's where you thought maybe you could finally be something. You watched other people blow up, streamers with setups you couldn't afford, confidence you didn't have, and viewers by the thousands. They made it look easy. Like all it took was showing up and pressing go live. So you did. Your first stream was a mess. Laggy gameplay, a janky mic, 0 viewers. Not even your friends showed up. You sat in that chair for hours, talking to no one, pretending you weren't embarrassed, but something about it stuck. The idea that if you just kept going, something would click. You started streaming every day, after school, after work, late at night. You rearranged your whole life around it. Canceled plans, skipped sleep, chased clips that no one would see. You thought the grind would pay off. You believed in the math. If you stream enough, someone will notice. If you're consistent enough, the algorithm will reward you. If you're loud enough, the world will listen. But the numbers didn't move. Your chat stayed empty. Your follower count sat still, and every time you went live, the silence felt louder. You tried changing games, changing overlays, changing thumbnails. You screamed more, you raged. You begged, you whispered, you copied trends, made reaction faces, bought a ring light. Nothing helped. Still, you convinced yourself it was coming. That moment, that break. That one clip, one raid, one lucky day when someone big would notice you and everything would change. So you stayed loyal to the dream. You skipped dinner to stream. You ignored texts. You told your parents you were working on your brand. You turned your bedroom into a studio, even though no one was watching. You believed if you just worked harder than everyone else, the results would follow. But streaming doesn't care how hard you try. There's no ladder, no path, no rules, just noise. And the worst part? You started to lose track of who you were before all this. You forgot what it felt like to just play games for fun. Every moment had to be content. Every laugh had to be shared. Every part of your personality had to be amplified until it wasn't even yours anymore. You weren't building a following. You were building a performance you couldn't turn off, and no one was clapping. So you kept the energy up, kept smiling, kept talking to a chat that wasn't there. You told yourself the grind was noble, that quitting now would mean it was all for nothing. That giving up would mean you were just like everyone else, normal. But normal was starting to look like freedom. Because while you were chasing this dream, life kept moving. Friends graduated, siblings got jobs, people started dating, traveling, living. You stayed in your room, camera on, heart open, waiting. Waiting for someone to finally see you. But no one came. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You kept pushing because that's what everyone said success took. Push harder, be patient, trust the process. So you streamed every day, built a schedule, optimized your titles, made goals, hit none of them. Still, you kept going. You hit record even when you felt like crying. You smiled through the lag. You hyped up every kill like it was an esports final. You screamed into the void like anyone was there. You told yourself that you just needed one good month, one viral short, one lucky raid, one spark to light the fire. But every clip you posted went nowhere. Every moment you thought might explode just disappeared, buried under millions of louder, prettier, funnier creators who already had audiences. You weren't just grinding, you were drowning. You'd scroll your feed and see people blow up for doing less, just chatting, just breathing. One of them wore a banana suit and said nothing for 6 hours. 10,000 viewers? Another one played the same game as you, only worse. They got partnered in 3 months. You started streaming 2 years ago, and you're still not even affiliate. That's when the cracks started showing. Not all at once, just little things. A missed stream here, a shorter session there, less energy, more staring into the camera between games, wondering if it was worth it. Your "let's go" became "alright, chat." But there was no chat. There hadn't been for weeks. You told yourself it was burnout, that you needed rest. But resting felt like quitting, and quitting meant failure. So you stayed live and empty, hoping that maybe someone would stumble in and change everything. The pressure didn't come from fans. It came from you. Because you told everyone you were gonna make it. You made it your identity. I'm a streamer, you said at parties. I'm building something. You told people to watch your channel like it was a business card. But now, the link just felt like a dead end. You kept looking at the viewer count, refreshing your analytics, tracking follower loss like a heartbeat. Each dip felt like a diagnosis. You tried acting like it didn't matter. But it did. It mattered so much it hurt. Because it wasn't just numbers, it was proof. Proof that maybe they were right. Maybe this wasn't going anywhere. Maybe you weren't special. You tried to pivot. switched content styles, bought a new mic you couldn't afford, made funny edits, tried to force the energy. But the more you tried, the more it felt like you were pretending to be someone who hadn't already lost hope. And worst of all, you couldn't even explain the failure. It wasn't like you didn't try. You worked harder than half the people who did make it. You watched the tutorials, you studied the tags, you checked every box, showed up every day, and still, nothing. You started dreaming of being normal again. Not famous, not rich, just free. Free from having to perform all the time. Free from chasing a dream that didn't love you back. Free from this chair, this camera, this haunting silence you kept calling ambition. But even in those thoughts, you felt guilty, because stopping meant you wasted all this time. And continuing, that meant you still believed. And honestly, you didn't know which was worse. At some point, the dream stopped being about making it. It became about not giving up. You started talking like a businessman. I'm building a brand, you'd say, even when you were broke, even when you couldn't afford to replace your busted webcam, even when your bank account dipped below zero and your only subscription was to your own self-delusion. You started calling yourself a content creator. It sounded better, like there was structure to this, like there was an actual plan behind the chaos. But deep down, you knew there wasn't. You were just improvising in high definition. You watched tutorials on monetization, read threads about Twitch payouts, built a donation link that no one clicked. Once, someone tipped you $3. You almost cried. Not because of the money, but because it felt like someone finally saw you. That $3 stayed in your PayPal for 6 months. Not because you didn't need it, but because it felt like if you touched it, the magic would disappear. You tried everything, merch no one bought, collabs no one watched, streams that turned into therapy sessions for strangers who never came back. You started measuring your worth in likes and follows, and when both stayed flat, so did your self-esteem. And still, you kept going. You leaned into the persona, amped up your voice, forced the jokes, plastered energy across your face like makeup. You became the entertainer, even when you were miserable. Because if you dropped the act, the already small crowd might vanish entirely. But faking it takes a toll. You'd finish a stream and just sit there, alone, in the same chair where you had just been on. The silence after the camera turns off hits different, like a hangover from pretending to be someone who has it all together. You knew people watched other streamers because they were relatable, but no one relates to failure. Not the kind that just lingers. Not the kind that quietly eats your 20s while you keep smiling on camera. You didn't want to be a cautionary tale, but you were starting to feel like one. People in your life stopped asking about it. At first, they were excited for you. How's the streaming going? Now, they just nod politely when you mention it. They think you're still chasing a phase, that eventually you'll grow out of it. But it's not a phase, it's a trap. Because every now and then, something almost works. A spike in views, a sudden comment, a tiny burst of momentum, and it gives you hope. The worst kind. Just enough to keep going, just enough to make you think, maybe this is the one. But it never is. And you can't stop. Because stopping now means you wasted all this time, all this effort, all these nights staring into a screen trying to be seen. So you push on, not because you're winning, but because you don't know what else to do. You turned yourself into a product. And now even you don't want to buy it. The camera doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't flinch when your eyes are bloodshot or your smile fades. It just stares, always on. And so you stay on too, even when your body begs you to stop. Because somewhere out there, someone else just went live, and you can't afford to fall further behind. You used to think burnout was something big streamers complained about. Now, you live it. Not dramatic, just heavy, quiet, a slow erosion of joy. You wake up tired, you go to sleep wired. You keep telling yourself the hustle will pay off, but it hasn't. You scroll past creators who blow up for doing less. You scream into your mic while they whisper into theirs and get 10 times the views. Every post, every clip, every attempt at relevance feels like screaming underwater. And still, you stream. Because what else are you supposed to do? You've said this is your dream for so long that walking away feels like a betrayal. You don't even know who you are without the grind. Your chair is your identity, your screen is your mirror. And when the camera's off, there's nothing left to reflect. You isolate. Not because you want to, but because you can't explain this life to anyone. Your friends don't get it. Your family stopped asking. You've built a wall of content around you, and now you're alone inside it. You tell yourself you're building a community, but it feels more like a cage. A place where people watch you unravel in real time and call it entertainment. You cry and someone clips it. You rage and someone posts it. You disappear and someone asks where the show went. But no one asks if you're okay, and still, you go live. Because maybe tonight is different. But deep down, you know the truth. Streaming didn't ruin you. You did it to yourself, trying to matter in a place where everyone is replaceable. It's quiet now, not post-stream quiet, real quiet. The kind that makes you realize how long it's been since you felt still. You're offline, finally. But your mind still runs on loops. Should I try again? Should I change the format? Should I even bother? You look at the camera, unplugged, it's just plastic. But it still feels like it's judging you. You gave it everything. Time, energy, identity. You shaped your days around a dream that never arrived. Every stream was a gamble, and you lost. Slowly, quietly. Until the silence became heavier than any viewer count ever was. Now you hesitate to tell people what you do. I stream sometimes. You mumble, hoping they don't ask for a link. Because what would they see? A graveyard of attempts. Empty chat boxes. You trying too hard to be noticed. You don't hate streaming. You just hate what it turned you into. Someone always online, but never present. Someone funny on camera and empty off it. Someone chasing validation in emotes and follows instead of real moments. You start to wonder if it was ever about the dream, or if it was just about not feeling invisible. And maybe you were never supposed to be famous. Maybe you were just supposed to live. So you step away, not with a farewell stream, not with drama, just quiet. You shut it down, not because you gave up, but because you finally had enough. No fans, no money, no legacy, just your name. And finally, you get to say it without performing. That's why it sucks to be a streamer.